Good morning. I'm Bob McDavid, Mayor of the City of Columbia. City Manager Mike Matthes and I meet regularly. Our conversations vary from impending legislation to nuts and bolts city issues to long-term planning. And we usually spend some time brainstorming. You throw out ideas to each other to see what sticks. During one of those brainstorming sessions, I lamented government's lack of incentive to lower expenses. Government organizations are given a budget number and then spend that number. Government departments fear that next year's budget will be cut if they don't spend the money. It's use it or lose it. So government spends all the money it can. When has anyone heard of a government agency announcing that it's saved money and it's going to give the savings back? My private sector experience was different. In the private sector, we constantly look for savings and efficiencies because those savings translated directly into owner profits, employee pay, and increased services. The woman who runs a restaurant with $200,000 a year in expenses and $230,000 a year in revenue takes home $30,000. If she can lower expenses by $20,000, she'll take home $50,000. So she's highly incentivized to reduce expenses. I offered the experience of Dr. Jim Brocksmith, a dear friend of mine and a wonderful physician. 30 years ago, Jim Brocksmith, a United States Marine, was in charge of a $1.6 million budget in Quantico, Virginia, $1.6 million. With a week to go in the fiscal year, Jim approached his commanding officer with the news that the unit would come in $100,000 under budget. Jim's commanding officer was irate. The commanding officer yelled at Jim and told him that he would spend that $100,000 during the next week, and it didn't matter what he spent the money on. The commanding officer said it would take him 5 years to restore that budget number if Jim didn't spend the money now. So Jim and his gunnery sergeant spent the next week on a $100,000 shopping spree, buying whatever they could get their hands on. Such is a lack of expense management discipline that many people associate with government in general. And frankly, many of us expect government to waste money. So I proposed to City Manager Mike Matthes the following. Why can't we incentivize each and every part of city government to save money? How can we reward each department if it saves money? Could it be a bonus? Could it be a promise not to cut next year's budget if they accrued savings? At the very least, let's not disincentivize government employees by slashing budgets if they find innovative ways to save money. So here's what Mike Matthes, City Manager, came up with, and we call it incentive-based budgeting. Mr. Matthes.
Thanks. So the mayor and I had that conversation in 2011. That was my first year as city manager in Columbia, and our focus, out of necessity, if you remember back then, roll the clock back, was we needed to cut the budget anyway. We were spending more due to the recession than we were bringing in. So we set a 3-year plan to end that practice where we would balance the budget. I'm very happy to report we achieved that goal last year. So when the mayor told me about Dr. Brocksmith's experience, I immediately remembered the military procurement horror stories of the 1980s, the $435 claw hammer, the $640 toilet seat, and the $7,600 coffee maker. It didn't play well then, and it never will. So city staff was already in a savings mode back then, cut the budget mode. But the mayor challenged us to do more, to change the system, and so that we would reward instead of penalize frugality. Well, I took that challenge to the cabinet, the senior leaders of the city, the department directors and their key advisors. And we agreed on some ground rules. We came up with how this could work. If you find savings, first rule, we're not going to cut your budget next year because you've saved money. And whatever savings we made collectively, we would share 50-50. We would split it with the department in the next year. So half of that would go back to the department, and half of that would be available for the city council to achieve its priorities. So money not spent this fiscal year rolls over into a project fund, and that's how we can play it forward, you might say. And finally, savings can only be used for one-time expenses. We don't know if we can reproduce this savings every year. It's an annual achievement, and so we can't count on it coming in every year. It's not a new revenue source. It's things we could get by without or find a way to do more cheaply. So we know it comes in once. It can only be used for one-time expenditures. So we made a 180-degree turn from a use it or lose it culture to use it now or you can use it later culture. You're not going to lose if you don't spend. And really, isn't that the way the rest of the world operates? You know, any family works that way. Any family budget. You know, you budget for your day-to-day needs. If you do save money, you know, you save it, and you save it up for something big that's important to the family or emergencies. So we were already in a savings mode, but now the stakes were higher. Instead of facing continual erosion of resources to serve citizens, which is a context we operate in, we have some hope. And so this also was the time when we created the first strategic plan in the city. So we focused on our new, wildly important goals, and we spent the money to advance those goals when we did create savings. So in FY12, so the year after we created this idea, through council and staff discipline, we saved $1.9 million. And the council kept their word, and they gave 50% of that back to the departments. And so I want to spotlight a few of those items that savings produced. Columbia was the first community in Missouri to outfit all of its police officers with body cameras. This was a community-sensitive, timely use of resources that we couldn't afford in the budget. So we piloted the cameras in 11, and we went force-wide last July before Ferguson. And we've heard a lot about body cameras since, and we're very proud of the police department for having the foresight to spend the money on that purchase. So body cameras film encounters between police and others. They're already helping prosecute cases and identify areas where officers need some coaching or training. We've even had one individual withdraw their complaint against an officer and apologize for his behavior after he watched the video of the encounter. Well, I have to talk about the Parks Department, too. People love Columbia's parks, and I see Mike Griggs back there. They're some of our crown jewels, and they should be accessible to everyone. So the Disabilities Commission recommended new surfacing at Steinberg Playground at Cosmo Park. It's called a Port in Place, and because it's safer, it opens up more leisure opportunities for all citizens, whether you're ambulatory or not. We also installed new play features at Little Mates Cove, if you've been down to the Twin Lakes recreation area. We resurfaced tennis courts at Albert Oakland. And we replaced deteriorating wood benches with benches made from recycled materials from our parks. What a great idea. So citizens continue to say that good streets are among their top priorities, so we also use part of that money to surface more streets, being responsive to the survey that we conduct each year. And honestly, we did want to brag a little bit about those achievements. We feel very good about those, and we hear a lot of good things from our community about those. And it really, for me, illustrates our form of government very well. Our form of government is not a political party-focused government. It's nonpartisan, and it creates a scenario where the city council, the mayor, decide what we're going to do. And then it's left to professional management, the department directors, their teams, the city manager, to figure out how we're going to do what the council decides we're going to do. So it's a really good division of labor, and it produces these exceptional results. So I see some of our staff members here I've mentioned. I want to personally thank all of you for doing this. You produce these results. We changed the system, but it's your decision-making about not spending the money if you don't have to that really makes this possible. So incentive-based budgeting takes a high level of trust between the staff and the council, and we have it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be challenged by the mayor and to have all of us meet that challenge. And the reason to go on about this is we have more good news. Our audit is complete, and Kristen Hughes from McGladrey is here. Kristen, would you join me up here to reveal to us what that good news is?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Kristen Hughes with McGladrey. As Mike mentioned, we completed the audit of the city this past week and have released their comprehensive annual financial report, which is known as the CAFR. I just wanted to touch upon, what all an audit entails and a couple items that you'll see in the results that we reported. The city is required to have an annual audit conducted by an external auditor. McGladrey is an external auditor. We're an international firm with over 75 offices and 7,000 employees, and they're independent of the city, which is obviously an important component of who you have hire to look at your financials. We have performed the audit for the City of Columbia for the past 6 years. The main purpose of the audit is to give an opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles or GAAP. Our opinion in the CAFR, which you'll see on pages 5 and 6, is an unmodified, or what they call a clean opinion. Unmodified means that the financials are, again, in accordance with GAAP, and that no issues arose as part of our audit process that would require us to modify the opinion for any reason. As presented in the CAFR, with some of the numbers with the general fund, the city's operating fund, you'll see an increase in fund balance of approximately $4.2 million, which is the result of revenues exceeding expenditures in that fund for the year. This brings the total fund balance in the general fund as of September 30th, the city's fiscal year end, to $33 million. McGladrey's audit, when we do an audit, we focus on historical financial information. We don't predict the stability of entities or take a look at their future finances of the city. That's not what an audit entails. But something to point out is that when the city uses bond rating agencies, that is what they take a look at. The city's had 2 recent reviews by these agencies, and their outstanding bonds were given a stable outlook or a AA rating by Standards & Poor's. They also assigned a AAA rating to the city's GO bonds for their current status. Again, although the purpose of an audit is not to give an opinion on the internal controls of the city, we do, under our standards, report if there's any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted in internal controls over financial reporting. And none of those we came across, none of those were reported in 2014, no problems like that. In addition, as part of the audit each year, we audit certain federal grant programs of the city. The city receives quite a bit of federal grant funding. So each year we take a look at some of the programs to determine the compliance of how those are being spent. In 2014, we audited the city's WIC program, their federal transit, capital, and operating grants, as well as fire and emergency response grants that was received through the Department of Homeland Security. And we didn't have any compliance issues as a result of those work, or any question costs or any instances where the city would have to pay back any of that money for it not being spent for the purposes intended. So that's a summary of the audit as far as, again, the financials and the CAFR and just our overall audit results for the work that we performed looking at their finances.
So what do we do with the $4 million in savings? Some of the points I want to make are repeating the city manager's comments, but all appropriations, of course, are decided by the city council as a whole through the annual budgeting process. The savings that we're talking about are confined to the general fund, which supports public safety, parks administration, streets, and transportation. And while I hope these savings are repeated annually, we just don't know about next year and the year after. We can't make future budget decisions based on hope. So I'd love to hire 20 public safety officers on the spot. But we can't hire them unless we know the revenue to pay them will be there next year and the year after. Now, one-time savings can be used to meet capital needs. We have miles of streets that need repair. We have double wides masquerading as Columbia Regional Airport Terminal. So the city's needs are great. These results of Columbia's incentive-based budget initiative are surprising to me and very encouraging. I congratulate City Manager Mike Matthes on this outcome. Over $4 million in savings is the direct result of smart, innovative management. I emphasize that these savings happened because department heads and workers bought in. These savings happened because employees trusted their leadership. These savings happened because Columbia city government workers are committed to saving taxpayer money. This incentive-based budget result shows what can happen if the incentives in government are realigned. So let's work together to be frugal and productive. Let's continue to value our citizens' hard-earned money. So congratulations, Mr. Matthes. If there are any questions of the city manager, we'll entertain a few.
Well, I can't help. I got to add one thing. One question I had was, how did we do that? How did we get $4 million? And we've known the number for a couple days and about a week, and so we haven't dug into all of it. But one of the things I'm proud of, fire department is a great example. They remodeled Station 2 on their own. They didn't hire out the work. The shifts did that work, flooring, patching, painting, and that one choice saved at least $5,000 worth of external costs. So that's one example, a real small one, where our folks are doing real frugal work in ways we can, and I'm proud of them for that choice, and that's one small example of what we've done. Without any other questions, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. And if everyone didn't hear it, is what wasn't accomplished to save that $4 million. We're very careful to look at that, and so I do know the answer to that. We have a strategic plan, and it calls for the accomplishment of certain wildly important goals. And so these savings are after we accomplish those goals. So we've actually implemented our strategic plan. You'll hear a lot of people say a lot of times, oh, you made a plan, it's been on the shelf gathering dust. We actually implemented ours, and we did it on time and in budget. And so the council established 7 high-priority strategic goals. We achieved them all. And we're going to have a bit of a press conference about that later on. But so what I can tell you is we did not achieve a goal in order to get the savings. These are things like what the fire department has done. It's postponing the replacement of a vehicle or holding a job open for another month, that sort of thing, where we can, where there's no loss of effectiveness or mission. was after the first year, you guys? No, so there's been 3 years since we implemented this. The second year, we did not have a savings. We actually, that was our last year in the budget cut scenario. So the very first year, what was amazing was we cut $1 million out of the general fund just to lower our spend for our budget cut plan. We spent $1.9 million less than that, so we really saved $2.9 million. The second year, we had to cut another $1 million from that first one to meet our goal. And while we did meet that goal, we weren't able to create more savings. So this year, the first year without a budget cut, requirement, we were able to come in $4 million under, which is, tremendous achievement. So we'll do that in the budget process, and that starts, well, it's already started on the staff level, but I will deliver a recommended budget to council in late July, early August, and then from that point they will decide, specifically what to do with the half of the money that will stay in the general fund. And as the mayor pointed out, there are plenty of things to use that money for to move the needle on. So those will be discussed in the budget process. Okay. Thank you very much.